Welcome to Tech Talks by AdTech. I'm Shiny and I handle content for AdTech in India. We have a super interesting interview for you today. Joining me is Anuj Kumar, who is the co-founder and Chief Revenue and Operating Officer at Affle. Affle is a global technology company with over 15 years in the AdTech ecosystem. It is one of the key players in the country today and the only one to have gone public and delivering continued advertiser and shareholder returns. And we have Noelia Amoedo, who is the CEO of MediaSmart, a leading self-serve programmatic mobile platform which is based out of Spain and has a great full footprint in Europe, LATAM, and US markets. MediaSmart is now rapidly growing into India and Southeast Asia after Affle's acquisition of it a few months ago. Welcome, Noelia, and welcome, Anuj. Glad to have you on Tech Talk. First order of business, I think congratulations are in order because of the Affle's acquisition of MediaSmart. We've been following this news for a while and we're super excited to talk to you about this. And I think it's been a while since this has happened, but we've been waiting to talk to you about this and about the opportunities this brings to the market. I know there is a lot of opportunities for you guys and a lot of new products for the market. So your take, I'd like to ask this question to both of you. What are the opportunities and what are the new things that you bring to market with this acquisition and with this merger? Anuj, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll take that. I think clearly, I think any kind of coming together of two organizations, I think is a meeting of minds and meeting of visions. And I think that's what we have seen with the MediaSmart team. And I think taking a business lens in terms of what it means, I think there are various areas because Affle, as many of you would know, obviously we've been in the ad tech space for over 15 plus years, and we've built multiple platforms within the company. And I think where we see MediaSmart fitting in is very, very complementing in terms of how it fits in into what all Affle is doing. And I would actually want to delve upon three core areas, which I feel, which is personally excited. Many of us who've been involved with MediaSmart in terms of ensuring that we can align and grow together. So I think the first one is really around, like if you look at Affle's largest strength today comes in terms of the DMP, which Affle has built out, which is helping us build audience intelligence, which is leveraged by advertisers globally, and with India being the largest market. Now, if you take the India market lens, Affle's DMP would have data of around 500 million plus device IDs. And what is that data? That data is largely around the online consumption habits of people in terms of what they're doing on the mobile device, what kind of products they buy, what kind of content they view, what kind of apps they have. That's the kind of data which is around how the person is living his life on the mobile device. What we found in MediaSmart was that MediaSmart, while it's a fully programmatic platform, the area of strength MediaSmart had chosen was largely around building a lot more offline persona of individuals based on where the phone is, where the person is residing. And our view was that if we could blend the online and offline persona of individuals, then we can offer to advertisers a much better stack in terms of how they can reach out to audiences which are most relevant for them. So I think clearly one from the product standpoint that I feel is a perfect marriage with the kind of strengths which both Affle and MediaSmart had. I think the other area which is also very, very significant is that if you look at Affle's business largely, and given that now we are a public company, we keep talking a lot about our business. Our business is largely around cost per converted user, which is largely around allowing advertisers to drive conversions, and these conversions could be new users or repeat conversions from the advertiser. And so if you look at from the entire funnel of advertising, conversion is the most bottom funnel event, which is where you are measuring the impact of advertising, which it is having on the end. In some cases, the end product is a sale. So the conversion is that, whereas a lot of MediaSmart advertising is top and middle funnel. And if you look at advertisers today, advertisers have both the challenges. At one end, they need to build a greater brand, which is really a top funnel activity. And obviously, they need to do it in a programmatic world with the right targeting. So if you can marry the top funnel strengths of top and middle funnel strengths of MediaSmart with the bottom funnel strengths of what Affle's existing CPCU platforms have, I think again, there is something which very, very meaningful and much bigger, which we can do together. And the third area, which personally has been a big area of excitement, I think, is around new technologies which MediaSmart has been working with. And MediaSmart clearly as a company has been one of the leaders in programmatic advertising in markets like Europe and the US. And I think one of the areas which is the trend which we have seen in more developed markets is how consumers are doing a lot more content consumption on connected TV kind of screens. And we are seeing same trends happening in emerging markets, and India is leading the flag from there. And I think the current pandemic has obviously led much more where TV content was not as easily accessible. A lot more people have moved in on OTT kind of content, which is watched on smart TVs. So connected TV as a space, there is enough and more new things which MediaSmart has been doing, I think, which is very, very exciting. And we believe that for the advertising landscape in India and also for the rest of Asian markets, this is still early days for connected TV. And MediaSmart has a significant head start in what they have done. And now what we can bring it together, I think, is very, very exciting times. So super excited about many of these synergies, which I think is, and we're just at the starting point of that. And it's unfortunate that this entire engagement between MediaSmart and Affle also happened pretty much at the start of the pandemic. I think, I think we've done a great job in terms of ensuring collaboration on Zoom and any other collaboration tools, and looking forward to a much greater phase of collaboration going forward.
Absolutely. I think, Anuj, really exciting times for you and for the industry, I would say, because one view I know has been a challenge. Marrying offline to online performance marketing is really big this year. So I think we are right on track then. Noelia, I'm very excited about this. Noelia, how excited are you about this, and what do you think are the opportunities that you foresee in your market and in the India market?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping also we can see each other in person soon, because as Anuj was saying, this has been very digital, totally socially distanced. Well, beyond the products, of course, that really excite me. I would say I'm excited about our possibilities together because of other reasons as well. There is first of all a complementary geographical focus, right? So our company, as Anuj was saying, was more focused in EMEA, US, and Latin America, whereas Affle is obviously stronger in emerging markets and in particular in Asia, right? So I feel like now we can as a combined entity be present in many more markets. And also, so far in this, almost 9 years, we had been in our journey. We had been very successful at developing very innovative technical solutions, but with a very small team for my taste, right? We're a very small organization, and thanks to the synergies with Affle, we can now bring our solutions to a much bigger customer base, right? So that is really excited because one is really proud of their baby, right? And they wanted to grow as much as possible. And I feel together we can do it. And I feel that momentum for growth can be there thanks to our cultural fit. So that was very important for me at the time of the acquisition and for the whole MediaSmart team, because we sort of share the same culture at a core, right? I mean, both of our companies were built on very sound financials. We've always wanted growth, but profitable growth. We're both very innovative and very collaborative, right? And that is important to really take advantage of the synergies, execute well, and bring that growth forward. Because without that cultural fit, I feel you can hit a lot more bumps on the road. So I'm confident, and I'm looking forward to us being bigger in Asia. That's for sure.
It sounds like a marriage of like minds. I'm really liking it.
Right.
So any conversation this year, and this is true for every conversation that I've had, whether it be formal like this or just a phone call, is we're talking about how the consumer is changing and how trends and, a lot of things that we expected people to do maybe in 2025, they're doing right now. And the pandemic or, whatever challenges of 2020 have brought about this change. Anuj, do you want to talk a little bit more about this? And, because of these changing consumer habits, do you see any opportunities that marketers can really take advantage of?
So I think from a consumer lens, I think this year, given some of the unfortunate events which have happened around us, I think has led to a massive change in terms of how consumers are adapting to technology. And I think I'll take an India lens, given that we are talking in India right now. So I think if you look at from an India lens, I think April was also the period where pretty much everything was locked down. And a lot of people, like in India, if you see that a lot of people we have around 500, 600 million smartphone users. But we only have around, till last year, we had only around 100 million people who were shopping online. So I think that's one thing which is changing dramatically, that sometimes while there was a natural growth momentum it was on, and it would have anyway grown in 2020, but I think a lot of that has been fast tracked with the pandemic, and sometimes people avoiding going out and preferring online transactions. So I think that's clearly from a user perspective, I think that's something which is seeing a significant change. And I think that's not just for buying, but that's for pretty much everything, education and gaming. I think kind of areas which were always considered booming areas from the Indian or Asian economy. The kind of growth they have seen in the last 6 odd months, I think has been unprecedented. So I think those are clearly consumer trends, that there are many, many new categories which have emerged, which are digitally first categories, which would have possibly reached the stage which they have today, maybe taken 2 years to reach, and they have done it within 6 months. And I think which is quite evident with the way many of these companies have been raising capital, growing. So I think that's a big ecosystem change which is happening. The second ecosystem change which I see from a consumer lens is really around how consumers are moving from linear TV entertainment to connected TV. And I think that's a big change. I think I think so many people who are largely, and I think this also got triggered because if you look at it, April, May was also the period when people were stuck at home. Everybody wanted more entertainment, and somehow the TV channels which were there, which were regular channels of linear TV entertainment, were not producing new content. So a lot of people, so while we had early adapters who had already moved into the OTTs, I think we had a lot more greater surge of consumers coming in on OTT and connected TV as the device to access that content, driven just by need, because you want to be entertained, and that's the only place where there is a repository of content which you haven't watched and it's available on demand. So I think that again is a key area. And I think that to me is also impacting how digital advertising is going on, because today, if you see that while these are ecosystem changes, from the advertising landscape, if you look at it, it's clearly evident that these are also the categories which are driving growth for the ad economy. Because if you look at any stats, clearly there is challenges which is from the overall growth. But if you put the stats on a digital, you wear just a digital hat or you wear a hat for categories which are benefiting from these kind of situations, that's where the growth is happening. And I think those categories are growing tremendously. I think the other area is that some of these categories are also evolving what they're doing on marketing. And that's where blending, because these are all brands which have been born in the last year. And at one end, they need to invest in building that brand, because you take a sector like EdTech, there are 10 companies odd who are well-funded, chasing this. Like everybody has some different proposition, but many of them overlap. And they're chasing a similar customer base. So you need to build a brand and at the same time invest in performance marketing to get ROI. So I think a lot of challenges around working with platforms which can blend both objectives, which is clearly because that's not the challenge which the e-commerce industry faced, because e-commerce industry did a lot of brand building. They had almost 5 years to take off. And while they're benefiting today, they're not born today. But some of these industries are in a way like they're born or matured in this era. And I think that's where there is a lot of excitement and change happening in terms of how consumers are moving. And obviously, wherever consumers move, the ad dollars move, and it's impacting how ad dollars are also moving.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. We have so many brands who are moving towards these, even ancient or legacy brands, I would say, are moving towards this D2C model. And of course, we have so many homegrown brands now, which are new, which were born this year or last year. And we've been speaking to a lot of them. And it's absolutely fantastic to see the kind of strategies they use. You also spoke about connected TV, Anuj. I think that's a wonderful opportunity. Noelia, and let me come to Noelia with a question about this. Can you, tell me, how would you compare linear TV buying or linear TV with connected TV? And what are the major differences? How would you measure linear TV versus connected TV? Or I would say, how do you measure connected television versus linear TV?
Okay. Well, if you allow me, it's a very good question that I'm eager to answer. But if you allow me, I'd like to first define some concepts, right? Because one of the things I found is that this ecosystem can be very confusing. It can be very confusing in everything, but even when it comes to connected TV, depending on what you read, different people call different things the same way and have different names for what I think is the same thing. So I'm going to tell you what connected TV is for us, right? Because it may be different for other companies. So for us, connected TV is, let's say, the device, right? And the big screen where you consume your content. And that can be what we call a smart TV, which is a TV that is itself connected to the internet. Or it can be a TV that is connected to the internet through another device, let's say a set-top box, right? But you consume the content in the big screen, right? And that is different from OTT, although in some cases I also see them used interchangeably, right? Because for us, OTT is more the delivery method or methodology. So content that is delivered over the internet, right? Whether it is on demand or streamed, but that OTT content can not only be consumed on the big screen of the TV, it can also be consumed in an app on your phone or on your tablet or even on your desktop, right? So that's an important distinction to make, because when I talk about what connected TV means for us, I want to make sure it's clear. And then there is
appreciate that, because connected TV is clearly new to India, and a lot of people may have different definitions for it. So yeah, thank you.
And it's not that it's necessary. Maybe I'm wrong. It's not that it's necessarily right or wrong, but we know what we're talking about, right? And then linear TV versus connected TV. Linear TV is TV where the content comes from an antenna or from cable. Right, so you get what you get, and you cannot get it on demand, right? It's only broadcasted to everybody. Whereas in a connected TV, the content is coming from the internet, right? And it can be either streamed or consumed on demand, right? So that's the big difference from, I guess, the end user perspective. From an advertising perspective, the way you buy advertising on linear TV is very different from the way you do it on connected TV, because on linear TV, you're tied to the programming, right? When you do media planning on linear TV, you're thinking about what shows do I want to advertise on, right? But somebody watching that show will get your ad, and everybody watching that show will get your ad. Connected TV is completely different in that it can be bought programmatically, right? And following the same methodology that you use to buy other types of digital advertising. And that is great because it allows you to take advantage of, or take the best of both worlds, right? You can advertise in a medium like the big screen that is clearly better to tell stories, to build brand awareness, but you can do so while taking advantage of everything that programmatic brings to the table, right? You can make sure your ads are relevant for your audience, because you're, again, buying in real time. You're buying those impacts or those impressions in real time. So you can make your ads relevant, and you can generate engagement, and you can track, right? But after my class, I guess maybe I can give you some examples because everything is better understood with examples, I think. So on connected TV, some of the things that you could do that you couldn't do on linear TV is, let's say, serve an ad to a particular household where you know there is a client of yours that has bought your products, but a different ad to households where nobody has ever bought your products, right? You may want to have a different conversation with both. Obviously, this is predicated on the fact that the advertiser has the right first-party data to do that, but maybe we can talk about that on a separate question. You can serve an ad to a particular household where you know there's students living, and a different ad to other households where maybe people that work in the finance space live, right? Or you can serve different ads depending on the area of the city the household is on. So I could go on and on with examples, but the main point is that you can target audiences, right? And you can, in that way, follow the same methodology you follow in programmatic advertising for other channels. It's slightly different when it comes to the algorithms behind, because you need to do some cross-screen stuff. They're more sophisticated, but the methodology is basically the same. And also you can generate engagement, right? So for example, at MediaSmart, we have this household sync solution that allows you to serve an ad on TV and then follow up with ads on other devices that people in that household have, right? So I can see an ad on TV and within an hour see another ad for the same brand on my tablet or on my phone. It can be the same video or rich media that I can actually click on and engage, right? And the advertiser can measure that engagement. So as an advertiser, you're not only creating more of an impact with your message and making sure your brand sticks, but you're also generating that bi-directional communication, right? You can get the user engaged, which is also something that in traditional linear TV you couldn't do. It was pretty much one way, and you can track and then even optimize based on what you're tracking, right? So it's quite different and better, I would say.
So it definitely sounds like an amazing gateway for all your traditional TV buyers who are finding it difficult to come into digital and feel that, oh no, digital is too difficult. But this is probably like a base for them to, kind of start with something they know and move into digital.
Right.
Awesome. And I really love the stuff you talk about retargeting to different devices from that original ad that you saw.
Mm-hmm.
So Anuj, coming to you, and you mentioned something similar to this. You said that, there are people who are online and there are people who are offline, and user behavior is kind of hybrid and seamlessly moving between these two. However, most brands and most marketers that I speak with find it very difficult to kind of, marry these two behaviors. So I see an ad and then, I may act on it, go into a store and purchase something. They have no way to connect these two. Are you guys working on anything that can actually marry or create like a one view of the advertiser, one view of the consumer for a marketer and make it simple for them to track across online and offline? Because we had a small conversation about this. I'd love to hear more about this.
Very, very relevant point. I think if you look at assets, like I'll talk about the customer journey first, because largely how customers are engaging with technology or their shopping is what the way the advertiser needs to target them. And if you look at it today, out of all the connected devices which you have, possibly the phone is the only one which you're carrying to the shopping mall, even when you're going out there. And if you look at the interaction, now while I'm there, imagine I'm there in the mall, I'm still on the phone checking out products which are there, go on to a shop, I choose a product offline, I go on to the payment counter, and then there is a QR code, I again scanned it on my phone and pay it like that. So while I have shopped offline, I have actually created a digital footprint of what I have shopped. Because I searched and looked for products, looked for prices. I also went and paid, and which is very, very unique, because what's happening is that every physical transaction in today's day and age, or not every is possibly an exaggeration, but a bulk of the physical transactions in today's day and age have a digital footprint. And the same thing can also happen digitally, because digitally also when you're buying products digitally, it doesn't mean that you can't check products offline. You might, and offline could also have different meanings. You get an ad in newspaper, you scan it, you get it on, you go onto the app, you buy it there. So there are multiple mediums interacting before a customer is making a purchase decision. Now, historically, what we have seen is that most marketers have looked at these two as isolated customer journeys. So there are companies which are online first companies who say that, okay, you know what, I'm an e-commerce company. If you can help me reach out to people who are transacting on e-commerce, I'm ready to pay a premium and advertise to these people. Similarly, somebody who's running a retail outlet, he's looking at more, maybe looking at digital, but looking at digital from a very different lens versus an e-commerce company. Now, given that the entire layer is connected so well, I think today, and I think that's the first point which I was making, which excited us most about Affle and MediaSmart coming together, because Affle's strength largely lay on the digital footprint of customers. Whereas MediaSmart's strength, because MediaSmart, obviously one of the core strengths of the platform is around the concept of location and proximity. So lay on the offline behavior of people. And what we are now offering to advertisers is that blended view of the advertiser. So if you want to target, say, a FMCG or a CPG brand wants to target a high-end shampoo. Now, their high-end shampoo obviously could be bought on the top e-commerce portals, could well be picked up at the shop. Now, for them, it's important, and they don't really care till the time the shampoo is selling that whether I picked it up from an Amazon or a DMart. For them, it's the same. And I think that's where the blended journey, because of the blended journey, I can allow advertisers that now you can actually create customer cohorts. These are, say, women who are interested in e-commerce and, say, reside in a high-end apartment complex, which possibly is a surrogate of the purchasing power, and are using, say, the latest version of Android or the iOS devices. So they can build multiple layers, which are layers based on the online footprint. So your e-commerce shopper or women is more online footprint. Your place of residence is on offline. You could also layer that, okay, these are people who might have visited malls in the last 1 week, and layer that data. And that data layering is what we believe as a key differentiation, which we are offering to advertisers right now. And we see a significant uptake, because that's not the advertisers intuitively know that the customer journey has changed and blended between what's online and what's offline. But the advertising landscape hadn't. And I think thankfully we are having something which should appeal to many, many more than what are already leveraging it, because clearly it makes intuitive sense.
Absolutely. Anuj, and you talk about data layering and the mobile phone being the key to, reaching out to these people and, understanding these behaviors, because that's the device we have at home and that's the device we're carrying to the shopping mall. So do you want to also, and most of these behaviors are being targeted through apps. And because I am paying through an app and I'm doing contactless dining through an app and I'm doing these multiple things offline and online. So do you want to talk a little bit about the trends in app marketing that you're seeing, or, app consumption that you're seeing in 2020? And what are the opportunities that marketers have here? What can they really, use that to kind of kick off their business in a better way in 2021?
Perfect. I think it's a spot on question basis what the customer trends are right now. So I think if you look at today, India is actually a very unique market that we are a mobile first market, clearly for internet. Bulk of internet is being consumed on mobile devices, and bulk of it within mobile devices is being consumed on apps. Now, what is really amazing is that even if you look at from a landscape point of view, we would also be the country with the most number of app downloads happening across at least the Google Play Store, which is 97% of India is kind of Android. So that's the store which defines, or the other Android app stores like Indus and all would largely drive all of that. And if you look at it, so the app economy is where the growth is, and pretty much any service which you are engaging with, whether you're buying products, you're buying services, whether you're getting a haircut or calling a carpenter or buying a phone, or meeting a school teacher or doing a call like this, most of us are using our mobile devices for that. And I think that's where the app economy obviously has seen the most significant growth over the last few years. And obviously many of those categories have seen greater growth in the last 6 months. And if you look at today for app marketing, I think there are multiple
while there is growth, and whenever there is growth, there is opportunity, there is also evolution which is happening on app marketing. So I think there are a few areas which I see as emerging trends within the app marketing landscape. I think one which is very, very particular to India, which is that app marketing in India is not limited to Google Play. Because India is also a market which has got multiple app stores which are OEM built app stores or experiences which are integrated within the handset. So the app economy is larger than what is defined on the traditional OS driven app stores. So I think that's one area, and for certain categories that becomes disproportionately larger because they see the early internet movers being more within those kind of app store environments versus the traditional iTunes or Google Play. So I think that's one thing which is unique to India. Second, from an app marketing point of view, I think what I even mentioned earlier is the entire concept of the full funnel marketing, which is creating awareness of the app, which is largely all what you're doing on the mobile phone itself, and driving transactions. So you need to have all the activities happening together. And while you're doing that, what you need to also be aware is that given that this industry has grown very fast, this industry also has its own challenges around fraud, around ad fraud. And clearly, how do you mitigate that? And one thing which we see as an emerging area, how customers are evolving their app marketing is, because earlier customers were largely looking at ROI measurement. I spent 100, if I got 150, I'm happy. That's ROI for me, or whatever they defined as ROI, different metrics were defined. I think now what's happening is that most marketers are evolving that they're wanting to identify the incrementality of each channel. Because ROI itself sometimes could be that you're deriving greater ROI, but that's largely because those users were kind of semi-organic, like somebody who's already showing intent for your product, who's searching for your product. If he's converting through an ad, for a lot of those people who have searched, they don't even know what's the difference of a paid link and a organic search. And that's where the ROI looks higher because the guy or the person who's looking for it is already in the purchase cycle. So I think incrementality obviously becomes very, very important because most advertisers are using multiple channels for communication. And traditionally, how they were measuring incrementality was that they would switch off one channel and then see what is the impact it has had on my ROIs. I think now, especially on the MediaSmart platform, I think we've built a lot of algorithms for real-time incrementality measurement. And I think that we see as very, very important for marketers where they can see how each channel is adding value. And increasingly, we see a greater interest within app marketers from moving from only ROI metrics to incrementality metrics. So one trend, obviously, which I mentioned in terms of which is more around the alternate app stores, which is an India specific trend. Second is the full funnel marketing, which is very, very important. Third, which is the incrementality in addition to only ROI measurement. And the fourth area is even for app marketing, looking at offline signals. And today we have advertisers, and who you would feel that these advertisers, like think of it as an online entertainment company. They are looking for advertising on the mobile device. They should be using a lot of signals of your digital behavior, but they also want to use offline behavior signals because they say a lot about what your interests might lie in. And that is where we are seeing that even for the app marketing community, many of them, like some are intuitive categories, like a grocery category, would want to look at offline signals because their products might be available and they would want that, okay, put me a geo-targeted campaign, which is only for this sector in a particular city. But even beyond that, your location and your behavior of where you go is, if somebody is more frequently visiting airports, is he the right kind of audience for a particular show on an OTT versus somebody who's visiting, say, schools? And if you can differentiate that, that offline signal becomes important for app marketing. So I think those are all changes and evolutions which we are seeing right now, which are very, very interesting, especially in the largest app market in the world.
Great. I think those are a lot of exciting opportunities in store. And Noelia, I understand that whatever Anuj spoke right now, and we're all excited to try this out, but all this is available through our big keywords for 2020, which is programmatic and data. So I want to ask you, with the advertising world moving increasingly programmatic, a lot of people also bringing this in-house, how important is data ownership really for an agency or for an advertiser? And for an agency and advertiser, yes, from a user perspective also, how important is to keep that privacy safeguarded? What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, data is key, clearly, and it has a lot of value. I alluded to it in my first example that I mentioned for connected TV, but it applies to anything, because if you have good data, you know your audience when you're advertising to them, and you can speak to them with a relevant message, right? And that's what ultimately drives and maximizes the impact of your advertising, which is what everybody's looking for. So and because it is important and has so much value, you should definitely own it as an advertiser, because if not, and if you don't learn and you don't gather data from any advertising budgets you have, then you're leaving a lot of value on the table, right? You're sort of buying the immediate stuff, but not investing in your future, if you will. Now, the challenge is of course making those ads as relevant as possible, which you can do when you gather a lot of data, but do so in a way that is respectful of the user privacy, because I mean, we believe that is key. For better or for worse, we developed our technology in Europe. And in Europe, end user privacy has been at the forefront of all conversations in everything digital, right? Even before, I'm sure you're familiar with GDPR, even if it doesn't affect you, as the regulation that came out in 2018, right? Even before that, there was strict regulation around cookies, and MediaSmart pretty much since its inception has been self-regulating when it came to privacy, and that's what actually helped us sail smoothly through the GDPR changes that came, right? So so we do care a lot about privacy, and we're very proud of bringing to advertisers a solution that empowers them. But empowers them through tools and a platform that is designed with a privacy-first approach. And what does this mean? It means that whenever we're developing, whether it is a big new solution or a small new feature, we ask ourselves the question, how can we do this in a way that brings the most value to the advertiser, but also keeps customer privacy, right? And the design that comes after that is a result of asking ourselves that question. It is through this approach that we've come up with a footfall measurement solution that can measure footfall in real time, incremental footfall in real time, but without keeping track of where every user is in every second, right? Which would, not keep their privacy. Or how I was mentioning earlier, our household sync solution for connected TV and ads, we're also able to do that without keeping a detailed user graph, right? We try as much as possible to keep user privacy. And then, of course, whenever we do gather personal information, is always with the user consent and kept in a secure way. So advertisers should definitely, or that would be my advice, gather as much data as possible. Gather it with platforms that do gather user consent, right? So the data about the end user should only come once that user has provided the consent. In Europe also, we're ahead in that area. And for example, to gather precise location, you need an extra opt-in of the user and stuff like that. So you should definitely safeguard privacy, but also take advantage of the data where the user has consented, right? Because again, it will help your advertising initiatives be so much more effective down the line. So I guess I hope I answered your question. Yes, we do respect privacy because it's the right thing to do. But also, I think if you look at trends, and we've been talking in this interview a lot about trends, it's clear that every country is adhering to privacy regulation sooner or later, right? It's a trend that is non-stoppable. Apple also following the same track. So we feel we're lucky we took this on early on, because and keeping this privacy first approach will make our solutions a lot more durable in the market, right? So because when new regulation comes out, yeah, we already are compliant with GDPR, with CCPA. Okay, bring it on. You know, our solutions should be able to stand the test. So we think it was the right approach strategically also.
Absolutely. I think self-regulation is the way to go. So if I can put it in 2 lines, I'd say data is oil and consent is gold. Absolutely gold standard for this. Great. I think that's very interesting. And Anuj, I want to come to you with a question about this on the same thing. So we are on the brink of a GDPR. We have data laws in place. We have the cookie-less world coming, so a cookie-less browser coming, which everyone is scared about. And you know, like Noelia said, you know, consent is gold. It's important to have the right data. It's important to have data that users are aware that we're using that data. Now, when it comes to that, how do you see this data usage? How has it evolved in the last 10 years? And one more thing that I wanted to ask you is that I saw this fantastic ad by Mondelez a couple of days ago about Diwali and how they recreated this, you know, proximity marketing and personalization at a huge scale. So if we are talking about data in the form of first-party data or consensual data, is it possible to create that kind of scale? So 2 questions really. How do you see data has evolved, data usage has evolved in the last 10 years? And how can we create scale if we are talking about only first-party data, or if you're talking about, you know, sets of data where there is, you know, where there has to be consent and there has to be self-regulation and laws to be followed? How do you create scale then?
So I think multiple parts of your question, I'll try and take a few of them. I think if you look at data, so I think if I take I think Noelia talked about how MediaSmart as a platform has largely been built with a privacy first structure as a platform philosophy, and also given that some of the markets MediaSmart was operating in, they were also where the privacy regulations were the strongest. I think if I wear the Affle lens, because our business has largely been more in Asia, I think privacy as a concept has been very close to our hearts. And I think even when the first patent Affle had was around consumer acceptable advertising. And this was a patent which was filed almost 15 years ago, or which is like pretty much in the start of Affle's journey. And I think that's where we believe that for any advertising to be impactful, it has to be consented and it has to add value to you. And I think as a company, I think that's been something which has been driving what we've been doing. And even when India, even right now, is still evolving in terms of its privacy laws, I know that we are almost at the final stage of some of these things coming in. But even before that, given that we were working across multiple markets, I think we were always looking at how is it that we can get accreditation, because we saw that that was an area of strength for us. Because when there is no regulation, you also have a lot of people who are abusing that data. And we saw that happening around, and we said that, okay, can we use this as our comparative strength to win greater trust from large companies who see this as a problem, even though there might not be any local regulations. And I think that's where some of the overall initiatives which we did, whether it's about getting accredited by the Singapore government, which is possibly the first region which had the PDP, which is the Personal Data Protection Act, and using some of those principles to build out our DMP, I think has been very, very critical to what we are doing. And I think even right now, as we go and build out on programmatic, now on programmatic, you have many ways in which you can leverage data. And that data is also both first party and third party. And I think we see value in both. And third party, but clearly if you're taking data from the audience, then it has to be consented. And wherever there is unconsented data happening, I think largely most regulations are going against that. Any data which is coming in with user consent, nobody really has a problem.
And I think first party data that way is a huge goldmine, because that's largely what is coming in completely with user content, because the user is sharing that because they want a better experience. I share with an app what is my favorite music because I want that music app to recommend me songs which I like. Now, that's very, very important insight. And as a consumer, many of these music apps, I'm an active user and I love when they curate playlists for me. And that's largely based on what I'm listening. And it's also based on what information I gave them in the first place, which made them build some audience persona around me. Now, if that first party data is making advertising more meaningful, that's something which users also would find value, because they have consented to part with that data. And I think that is where our focus largely is right now, that clearly looking at user consent as being the driver for all the innovations which we build out. Doing a lot of work directly with the large advertisers where we can blend their first party data assets together with third party. And I think the big advantage which markets like India also offer is that while there is a lot of things which are happening on cookie, there are things which are happening on IDFA. I think one thing which we need to realize in the India market is India is largely app economy, which is Android app economy. So clearly, while obviously some of these things are happening, the Android app economy is something where you still have the identifier, which again is user consented, because the GAID is something which the user can reset at any time. And that is where, as a DMP company, we always have a challenge that we need to keep recency of data into account, because the handset changes and B, the device ID gets reset. So I think those are important areas. And going back to the example which you pointed out, even I had seen that ad, which was recently got a lot of social media mentions in India. And to me, it's a great example of how offline data has been used to augment an online advertising campaign. And I think that's a great example of what we have talked about for a large part of what we have covered today, that those worlds are blending. And some people are using that data to creatively customize their message. And some are using it to creatively customize targeting. Some are using it to creatively drive engagement. And largely speaking, what is good advertising? It's a great message told to the right person, which is having some call to action, which is measurable. And if you can blend the three, and in all three, earlier creative was kept out of data. And I think the example which you pointed out, I think is a great example of creativity being enhanced with data insights and with AI algorithms doing multiple creatives based on user location.
Absolutely. It was a beautiful ad and a beautiful message overall. Noelia, I don't know if you saw that ad, but we can send it to you if you haven't. So this was done by Mondelez, the chocolate manufacturer. And with the festive season coming around in India, it was like absolutely the right kind of message that we were all looking for. So we understand that a lot of these capabilities and a lot of way that Mondelez was able to do this kind of pinpointed targeting and dynamic advertising, all this is kind of available only through programmatic platforms. And that's the way to do this. Now, a lot of advertisers that I spoke to, and in 2020 especially, are trying to build these capabilities in-house, which is great. So, they're trying to move away from that agency model. They're trying to, teach, create a specialized team for programmatic marketing, which can kind of, handle this entire piece solo by themselves. Do you think that makes sense? Do you think the programmatic journey is something that it makes sense to walk alone, or should we still be working with multiple partners, because there's so much more to explore there?
Well, I think it's difficult to give an answer to everybody, right? Because each advertiser lives their own world, and what may make sense for some may not make sense for others. So I'm not going to answer that directly, but I think what does make sense is for advertisers to understand and control this technology, right? That absolutely makes sense, because if you don't understand it, first of all, you can be taken advantage of, right? There's so much at stake that you need to understand what's going on. Then whether you want to, build a team in-house and license a DSP or build your own from scratch, or whether you want to have an outsourced team that actually, manages those platforms for you, that totally depends on the specific case. But I think that understanding and control is what is important. And we have seen that trend for sure in Europe, in the US, of what is called in-housing, right? And we're prepared for it. I don't know if it's luck or an amazingly smart strategic decision at the beginning of our career, but at MediaSmart. But our full console web application is built on top of an API, and that API is open to advertisers. So it's very easy to use our platform at a lower level if you want to do your own customization and integrate with your own tech stuff. So we're well positioned for that trend coming. So we would like to see more and more advertisers doing in-housing. But I think for an advertiser, I would also be careful, if I'm allowed to give some advice. And what you say about going alone, I don't think you can ever do this completely alone, because there are companies fully focused with a bunch of people on just doing one small piece, right? I think you should always try and build on step on somebody else's shoulders if you want to be effective and have that time to market. So for me, there is a nice balance, right? If you want to have, again, that control and of the technology, maybe there are things you need to customize and things you need to integrate with that fit your business, right? But you shouldn't try and reinvent the wheel, right? Because there's a lot of complexity in the programmatic space. If the amount of algorithms in our team just to manage the amount of bid requests per second that our system manages and make that match with the campaigns you have. And every small piece of the architecture has a lot of work behind. And as an advertiser, honestly, that may be more of a commodity. It doesn't bring additional value to you specifically, right? To build it on your own, and you can get lost in reinventing a lot of wheels. So you should definitely have that control and understanding, whether then you hire a team to manage it or you outsource to another team. You should do whatever customization and integration with your own systems that is required, with your own reporting, with your own, of course, first-party data. And you should try and keep that balance when you think about what to build versus what to license, I think, right? I don't know if I answered your question.
No, absolutely. No, I think it makes a lot of sense. So build the right capabilities, but work with the right partners. Do not walk alone. And I think
exactly. And I also think there is the risk of getting lost, of reinventing a lot of things that do not bring value. That has an impact in time also, right? You can set up a team, start developing, and then maybe you're able to launch something in 2 years. That's not what you want. So being a little selfish here, putting MediaSmart's message forward, but I think one of the things that our platform brings to the table is that you do have the capabilities to access APIs, to integrate, and to customize, right, in the long run, while at the same time you have a console and a product that is readily available, right? So it may help you manage that time to market, so you can start running your business with a big degree of control right away, while you in parallel continue doing more customization in the long run.
Absolutely. I think that makes total sense. And a lot of these partners that we work with, Anuj, are agencies and trading desks who are actively embracing programmatic. So what would your advice to them be?
That's a tough one. At least I've seen the advertising landscape evolve significantly over the last few years. I think I've been part of that landscape pre-Affle, and as Affle, obviously being very actively engaged with the agency community over the last 15, 16 years. And I think clearly, one area which has seen the most significant amount of growth within all agencies right now is digital and programmatic. And
every agency group, if you look at it today, has been doing exceptional work on how they are leveraging programmatic. But if I was to answer your question, areas which I feel there is still room to do more and get better on, I think I'll try and recap 4 or 5 which come top of mind to me, which I think should be quite valuable. I think one which I see is that there is an overarching dependence which a lot of agencies have, which is on the walled gardens. And that I feel that is a significant challenge, because within the walled gardens, clearly the data ownership is neither with the advertiser nor with the agency. So the walled gardens are making you dependent, where you are building every customer segment, every customer cohort there and reusing it between the two platforms. And while it's the easiest way to advertise, but I think from a long-term lens, clearly we believe that advertiser, or whether directly or through their agency, because agency is also an extended arm of the advertiser, they need to own that asset. And I think that's a very, very important point. And I am started seeing some of the larger global advertisers wanting to build out their own DMP, CDP stacks, wanting to move spends away from the walled gardens, because there is enough and more ways in which you can connect with consumers, but have own the intelligence around who has seen your ad, who is engaged with it, who has clicked, who has bought. And that is the gold mine of information. And as Noelia also said earlier, you're leaving a lot on the table if you're not questioning that. So I think that over dependence on walled gardens, I think needs to be questioned, and needs to be questioned by all agency groups with the point of view of data. And I think data ownership becomes very, very important. I think the second area which I see is that, especially from an India lens, I think a lot of companies which are data-driven DMP companies, or even agencies building their own data stacks, have largely done it on cookies. And if you look at it, India is not really a cookie market. India is a mobile first, app first market. So I think relying on data sources which are more device ID, app ID based, I think is an area where less is happening right now. And I see that while still a lot of ease is there because you've built historical data, what you need to realize is that a customer of today is not really on the mobile browser. And even if he or she is on the browser, it's becoming increasingly difficult in terms of what you can do with the cookie. So I think building a greater appographic graph of users, or the device ID graph of users, or working with platforms which are allowing you to do that, I think is an opportunity which is under leveraged at most places right now. And why I say it's under leveraged, because largely advertising should be where the consumer is. And if the consumer is on the app, whereas advertising intelligence is on the PC browser, then clearly there is no meeting point. And so I think that's the second area which I look at it. The third is largely around the offline online linkage of audiences. I think we've talked enough on that. I think that's an area of opportunity where a lot more needs to be done. And I think a lot more will evolve, because also what's happening, what we need to realize is that while mobile is one connected device, there are multiple other connected devices also which are capturing many signals. So whether it is your voice assistant at home, your whatever the Amazon Echo, or your watch, smartwatch, there are many connected devices. And ensuring that you can have a greater device or a user persona through their entire journey becomes quite important, where both offline and online footprints will play a role. And if I was to just go a bit further there, I think also areas which I see as under-penetrated opportunities, given how consumers have moved to digital video and digital audio. And again, while there are all agencies doing things around programmatic audio, around connected TV, I feel the consumer time spent on those devices is greater than the advertiser money spent. And sometimes that could be just led by inertia, and that's waiting to be disrupted in my view. And I see those as areas. And I think finally, I think there is huge amount of money which is being spent on digital, and that share of money every year, whenever these reports come out, we only see that those graphs are at least one graph which makes us smile. Even in these pandemic times, when the overall advertising industry has seen an impact, I think the digital part is at least which brings you some solace of hope. And when there is disproportionate amount of spends, in some categories it may still be 20-30%, but in certain categories 90% of the spends are digital. measuring ROI and incrementality together, I think, is very, very important. And advertisers who can do that, who will be able to do that, or agencies who are doing that, I think will see greater value creation, because this is not an also ran media. This is now the most dominant media on most of your advertisers. So I think that's largely areas. So just quick recap, I think the walled garden part, I feel, is an area which is there. The changing consumer landscape with new devices and footprint of online, offline. So many, many things there. While many are happening, I think these are all under-indexed opportunities in my view. And clearly, I think any kind of emerging industry has certain under-indexing in its early days. But even when we talk to the big agency groups today, I think today most of the conversations at least have started evolving into these areas, which I think is the right direction. People are thinking and talking that, and I'm sure the actions in 2021 will speak greater in terms of disproportionate share going in these areas. Well, consumers will keep evolving. I'm sure there'll be far more number of shoppers online, but at least there'll be some semblance of the indexing of ad spend versus time spent of consumers.
Absolutely. I think this 2020 has been a year where we've seen massive digital transformation in a lot of forms happening. So I'm sure all these opportunities are really gold nuggets that will get utilized better in 2021. So we've spoken a lot about programmatic data and all the important stuff and all the tech stuff. So let me ask you a fun question. And Noelia, this one comes to you. If there is one advice that you have to give to your 2012 self, what would that be? I think 2020 has been a year of reflection also. Everyone's thought very deeply about themselves. So what is that one advice that you would want to give your 2012 self? You're on mute, Noelia, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was saying that I was very naive back in 2012. Yeah, when we started MediaSmart, I think the main thing is that I used to think when I started that all we had to focus on was making campaigns effective, right? That's all, and as long as we just focused on making those campaigns effective on mobile devices, we would be golden. And I realized it was not so much about that as about many other things. And I think the specific advice would be never to underestimate the power of the incentives and the inertia in the market, right? Because I was very, very optimistic. Again, yeah, if our system works and delivers results, then that's all we need. But if the incentives in the market are not the right ones, that's not what people care about, right? So often in the performance and digital world where everybody measures ROI, it's all become about what you measure, how many conversions you count, right? And then in many cases, it's not so much about the, as Anuj was saying, about the causality effect between the ad and the conversion, right? Which is, I was more about how do I get this ad to convince the user to use the service, right? And in a world in which it's all about counting, that is not what is important. So with time, I realized that, there are things that became difficult in the market because not everybody was playing the game that I thought was being played, right? And then, yeah, there's also the inertia of, things are done this way and you come with something that is disruptive, that is, we think, better and brings more value, but that's just not how I do things. So I think I underestimated those two things, and I've learned.
So we've all learned, and it's been a wonderful journey, I would say, in the digital space, and we're all blessed to be in this space, I would say. Anuj, what advice would you give to your 2010 self?
Wow.
When AdTech started and you were on the
I wasn't thinking of that answer. I thought that you were going with different questions, so I'll get a different one, and now you've put me on the spot in terms of what I would advise 2010 self. I think one is that never make a vision 2020, because the way 2020 has shaped in, no vision document of any company would have predicted where 2020 is going to be. So
But I think on a more personal note, I think professionally, I think thankfully things have been good. We've been progressing well. We've seen the industry evolve. Sometimes a bit frustrating. I think, as Noelia was also saying, you expect things which are intuitive to be adapted fast, but it's just inertia. And experience teaches you that like you can't push the wall. You can just you can't break it. You can just keep pushing it. So I think that's where thing is. But I think on a personal level, if I was to just go back 10 years, I think in the last 10 years I've spent significant amount of time traveling. I've spent like almost 50-60% of my time traveling, and I have lived 2020 with no travel beyond one visit to the MediaSmart Spain team, which was pre-pandemic. But there has been no other travel, and I've realized that there is so much more productivity which can be had. And it's not that Zoom and Google Meets didn't exist pre-pandemic, but we were not using it as efficiently as we use them right now. So I think, and what could I have done with that time? Like, which is largely going in airport lounges, etc. So I think I feel investing that time in upgrading oneself with new learnings, traveling to traveling not from just doing meetings, because meetings can well be had like this, but traveling to just experience more cultures. So I think saving some of that time and using it meaningfully to upgrade yourself as a professional with more trainings and reading, and personally through more experiences with travel. So I think that is some of the key things, but never make a Vision 2020 document. And my goal is don't make it for 2030 also. Given the way things are evolving, I don't know where we are headed to.
Let's stay optimistic about this. I think both of you spoke about inertia, and I think 2020 was a year where a lot of people broke through that inertia, because it was so, we weren't thriving, we were just trying to survive. And I think that is what was needed. So good luck with this partnership, and really excited to see where this heads 2021. Okay.
Yes.
I would say thank you so much for your time, Noelia and Anuj. I think this was a wonderful conversation, so many learnings. And, we look forward to a great 2021 with both of you, and hopefully we meet in person as well at AdTech 2021.
Looking forward to that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.